Some animators become the heart of a community, while others become the reason that the community stops trusting itself.
What is this, dealer? Taking a piss, I've been standing here for 30 minutes.
In early 2024, Donut Gamer seemed to materialize out of thin air and immediately dominate the OSC Hot 100 leaderboard. In less than a month, he went from being virtually unknown to sitting just below the very top, with a subscriber count nearing 2 million. On the surface, it looked like a classic internet success story, the kind people love to point and say, see, anyone can blow up overnight. But the excitement barely had time to settle before the cracks started showing. Within the object show community, people didn't feel inspired, they felt confused. Despite the massive subscriber count, Donut Gamer's videos were struggling to reach even a fraction of the audience. Many uploads failed to reach a few thousand views, engagement was almost non-existent, comment sections were empty, like counts were unusually low. For a channel that was supposedly one of the biggest in the entire community, it felt eerily quiet. That silence raised eyebrows. As more people started paying attention, the numbers were scrutinized more closely. Community members began comparing subscriber growth to view counts, something YouTube veterans do almost instinctively. What they found made the situation impossible to ignore. A healthy YouTube channel might gain 1 subscriber for every 100 views, sometimes even better if the content strongly resonates. Donut Gamer, however, was gaining 1 subscriber for every 2 or 3 views. That doesn't happen. No algorithm on YouTube functions that way. No audience behaves that way. Even viral content doesn't produce ratios like that. And at that point, speculation turned into certainty. There was no clever explanation, no hidden trick, no misunderstood analytics. Donut Gamer had subbotted.
I just keep feeling too. I just can't believe the wonder of this feeling. It's true. Ah, sugar, honey, honey.
Instead of building a following through consistent uploads, creative originality, or genuine interaction, he attempted to manufacture credibility using inflated numbers alone. The strategy was simple and tempting. Big numbers create the illusion of importance. Importance draws attention. Attention then opens doors. The problem is that fake growth cannot survive scrutiny. The moment anyone looks close enough, the entire illusion collapses. Now, what made the situation even more frustrating for many people was the lack of response from YouTube itself. There was no visible investigation, no public action, no enforcement of platform rules. The channel continued to exist as if nothing had happened, despite the evidence being obvious to anyone willing to look at the analytics for more than just 30 seconds. That left the community to clean up the mess on its own. The OSC Hot 100 leaderboard eventually removed Donut Gamer entirely, not out of spite, not out of drama, but because the data was no longer credible. His presence undermined the entire purpose of the leaderboard, which was meant to reflect real creators with real audiences. When the community had to enforce basic standards that the platform itself ignores, it sends a message that's impossible to miss. But the internet always notices. Donut Gamer's rise was fast, but his credibility collapsed even faster. And in a community built around transparency, creativity, and shared passion, that kind of deception doesn't fade quietly. It lingers. It reshapes how people view numbers, trust, and success. That question is exactly why the Donut Gamer story matters, because once you look past the subscriber count, the entire illusion starts to fall apart. But here's the thing, not every controversy in the animation space is about fake numbers or inflated success. Sometimes the problem isn't what a creator shows the audience, it's what happens behind the scenes. Now, Cole the Geek didn't become controversial because of his animation ability.
Yeah, your car, not so much?
My car?
By most accounts, his technical skill was never the issue. The backlash came from how he treated the people around him, particularly the young creators he recruited to work for him. Cole built teams of animators, many of them extremely young, some reportedly as young as 13 years old. These weren't casual collaborations or learning exercises. He expected fully finished animations to be delivered within 5 to 7 days, a deadline that anyone with even basic animation experience knows is wildly unrealistic. What made the situation even worse was the lack of transparency around payment. There was no clear indication that these young animators were being paid at all. To many observers, it looked like Cole was leveraging his platform and influence to extract free labor from inexperienced creators who didn't yet understand their value, while he benefited from the final product. That perception alone severely damaged his reputation.
What's funny?
This is a game for God knows what prize. Making friends isn't gonna get you to the end, that's for sure. If you want to win, you have to think about you and only you.
Then came the second wave of backlash, which pushed things from questionable to outright unacceptable. Cole shared offensive imagery and jokes that many viewers interpreted as racist. Rather than acknowledging the harm, the content came across as dismissive and insensitive. And on top of that, he publicly defended another creator who had been accused of grooming a minor, claiming that the individual had changed. Now, for many people, that defense crossed a line. Grooming allegations are not something audiences take lightly, and minimizing them, even indirectly, was seen as deeply irresponsible. When criticism reached its peak, Cole released written apology statements. Almost immediately, people began posting out that the apologies felt generic, impersonal, and eerily similar to AI-generated responses. Whether or not that was true, the damage was already done. The apologies lacked accountability, emotion, and specificity, and shortly after the backlash reached its peak, Cole wiped his channel almost completely. Videos disappeared, community posts were removed, his online presence suddenly went quiet. To many people watching from the outside, it didn't look like reflection or accountability. It looked like an attempt to step out of the spotlight and wait for the storms to pass. When a creator removes everything without addressing the core issues, it often reads less like growth and more like avoidance. After some time, Cole quietly returned. There was no clear reset, no detailed explanation that directly confronted the most serious concerns. The return felt cautious and incomplete, as if the goal was to move forward without reopening uncomfortable conversations. For many viewers who had followed the situation very closely, that silence spoke louder than any apology ever could. When questions go unanswered, they tend to linger.
No one remembers me. Not one person.
Maybe you should have labeled yourself recyclable. People might have kept you around longer.
What's that supposed to mean?
And linger they did. Even now, the fallout is easy to see. New uploads are met with very heavy dislike ratios. Comment sections are filled with reminders of past behavior rather than excitement about new content. Instead of being a space for discussion or creativity, his comment sections often read like unresolved arguments frozen in time. The controversy never fully faded because it was never properly addressed. Without clarity or accountability, the audience was left to draw its own conclusions. This is where Cole the Geek's story differs from simple internet drama. This was never just about the people being offended or cancel culture going too far. It was about responsibility. It was about how someone with influence treats the people around them, especially when those people are younger, unpaid, or eager to please. When a creator holds power, whether through an audience or a team, their choices carry real weight. Ignoring that responsibility doesn't make it disappear. It only makes the consequences last longer. That's when the conversation shifted from admiration to suspicion, and numbers started telling a very different story. And the moment a creator forgets that, admiration has a way of turning into suspicion very quickly. That shift is exactly where this next story begins. APOY, a person on YouTube, was not a fringe creator or an obscure name within the object show community.
Shut up! I'm Grassy, you motherfucker.
Okay.
He was a well-known OSC commentary creator with over 160,000 subscribers, a size large enough to give him real influence. His videos were confident, analytical, and positioned him as someone who understood the community and its problems. To many viewers, he came across as informed, level-headed, and trustworthy. That reputation is exactly what made the fallout so severe when the truth came out. APOY was exposed for having an extreme fetish and for privately soliciting fetish-related audio from another person through direct messages. On its own, having a fetish isn't a crime, and it's not automatically a moral failing. This is not where the line was crossed. The situation became disturbing because of context, timing, and power imbalance. The person APOY contacted had recently expressed suicidal thoughts and emotional distress. This wasn't speculation, this was known within their conversation. Instead of creating distance, setting boundaries, or prioritizing that person's safety, APOY made a sexual request. That decision fundamentally changed how people viewed the situation. What could have been framed as poor judgment instantly became something far more serious. A failure to protect someone in a vulnerable state.
A volcano? Imagine that. Lol.
You're joking, right?
Yeah, of course. No, of course not.
This was made even worse by the environment APOY operated in. The OSC community has a large number of minors. That's not a secret, and creators at his level are fully aware of it. Allegations surfaced that fetish-related discussions in spaces connected to APOY weren't properly restricted. While not every claim could be independently verified, the concern itself was enough to alarm people. When you're a large content creator in a community with many young viewers, responsibility isn't optional.
Coming out of 2 holes!
Oh no! Lava shower! Gotta protect Ice Cube!
After the backlash began, APOY didn't attempt to deny what had happened. He acknowledged that he had crossed a line, but the way he framed his responses only deepened the damage. He described the situation as bad timing, a phrase that immediately rang hollow for many people watching. Given the context, that wording felt less like accountability and more like deflection. The issue was never about when the message was sent. The issue was that it was sent at all, especially under circumstances involving vulnerability and a clear imbalance of power. To the community, that explanation felt dismissive. It reduced a serious ethical failure to a scheduling mistake, as if the same action would have been acceptable at a different moment. That framing mattered because it suggested a lack of understanding about why people were upset in the first place. When creators respond to criticism without fully grasping the harm they caused, it becomes clear that the apology is more about damage control than change. APOY's case became a clear example of how quickly respect disappears when power is misused, and how reputation means nothing if it's not backed by ethical behavior when it matters most. Cloudy Eggs was a smaller creator, but his impact was severe. He was exposed for engaging in fetish roleplay with minors on Discord servers. Screenshots allowed inappropriate conversations, roleplay scenarios, and admissions of paraphilic behavior. Screenshots later revealed that Cloudy Eggs was engaging in fetish-based roleplay with minors inside these servers. The conversations weren't vague, ironic, or misunderstood jokes. They involved explicit scenarios, inappropriate power dynamics, and sexualized language that should never exist in spaces where minors are present. In some cases, Cloudy Eggs openly discussed his own paraphilic interests, treating them as something to share rather than something to separate from younger audiences. What made this case significantly worse was the way Cloudy Eggs responded once the allegations became public. Instead of firmly denying the accusations or challenging the validity of the evidence, he did something far more damaging. In the comment section under exposure videos and community discussion posts, he openly admitted to certain aspects of the behavior. These weren't carefully scripted apologies or vague statements meant to calm the situation. They were direct, unfiltered responses that acknowledged the reality of what had been shared. And by doing this, Cloudy Eggs removed any remaining doubt about the authenticity of the screenshots and conversations. And for a brief moment, some people had wondered whether the evidence could have been taken out of context or manipulated. Those questions disappeared almost immediately once he began confirming details about himself. His own words validated the claims more strongly than any expose ever could. Those admissions changed how the community viewed the case almost instantly.
Okay, Fiery, you try. You try, Taco.
Hey, have any of you seen my blueberry seeds?
Once someone confirms inappropriate interactions with minors, the discussion stops being about intent or misunderstanding. It becomes about responsibility and harm. And at that point, there was no scenario where explanations or context could soften what had already occurred. For many people, that disappearance didn't feel like accountability. It felt like an escape from consequences, leaving victims and the wider community without closure. What remained was a clear line in the sand. Once minors are involved and admissions are made, walking away doesn't undo the harm. It only freezes the damage in place. This case stands as a reminder that silence after exposure isn't the same as resolution, and disappearing doesn't erase what had already happened. The most loved animators didn't become loved by accident. They earned it through consistency, respect, and restraint. The most hated creators didn't fail because of one mistake. They failed because they ignored every chance to stop. And in the end, the difference between the most loved and most hated animators isn't talent, but whether they chose to protect their community or themselves.